back, listeners and viewers, to another week of Education, the Teachers Talking Terror podcast, where myself, Mike,
and myself, Courtney,
are here again to talk about another movie. I feel like, even though we're 2 full weeks into the school year, I feel like we're just starting.
Yeah.
So we are back to actually talk about for once and possibly ever, a educational-based movie. This movie takes place in an educational setting. There's no classrooms or teachers involved, but it does take place on a campus. On a college campus. We are here this week to talk about the 1986 science fiction horror comedy Night of the Creeps. One of my favorites growing up. And still, because nostalgia works its wonders, it's still one of my favorites now. Night of the Creeps. It's got a little bit of everything.
Yes, it does.
Movie kicks off with some science fiction, kind of out of nowhere. You get these naked aliens running around on a spaceship.
Yeah, they look like big brains.
They do. They're just running around on a spaceship, and one of them's got some sort of canister with something in it. We don't know what's in it yet, and he's being chased down and. Because it's an 80s sci-fi piece, there's lasers being shot, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, whatever this alien has, he releases it out into space in its canister, and it does its end over end flipping through the universe. Because honestly, space rules don't apply in movies. As soon as that canister left the surface of that, it should have just floated.
Vanished.
But this was on a crash course for Earth.
Yeah.
And it lands. It lands on Earth in 1950. Do you like science fiction movies?
Yes and no.
Explain.
I don't know, it's not my favorite genre. But I enjoy Harry Potter.
Harry Potter's not science fiction. It's fantasy.
Okay.
He's a wizard.
True. I guess not really then.
Oh.
I'm trying to think of other science fiction movies that I've seen.
Like Star Wars?
I do like Star Wars.
That's science fiction.
Okay.
You're in space and you've got It's science fiction it's not as big of a genre as horror, but I feel it's still a vast of there's almost a spectrum of, is your science fiction more science or more fiction? Mm-hmm. Because aliens and spaceships is science fiction. Star Wars is science fiction, but then even futuristic landscapes is science fiction. But on the other end of the spectrum, cooking up some creature in a laboratory is science fiction. It's
yeah. And I like movies I like the Transformers, but
it's a little bit of science fiction there.
It's more fiction-y.
Yeah, it's more fiction-y, more action-y.
Yeah. But Star Trek and those, I don't.
Yeah, no. I've never seen a Star Trek.
Avatar, no thank you.
I have seen Avatar. To watch it again would feel like a brand new movie, despite it making all the money in the world when it came out.
Yeah,
I have no recollection other than it's basically Pocahontas. It's the story of Pocahontas. But yeah, so this movie kicks off with a little bit of science fiction, and then we quickly abandon ship, literally, from science fiction. And we end up in black and white 50s movie.
Yes.
Which is kind of cool because they did a very good job of making it feel like a 50s movie for an 80s movie.
Yeah. And as I had told you, at school, I had fallen asleep. And it wasn't far past this. And so I was like, oh, man, this is all black and white.
Yeah, and you don't like black and white.
I don't. No. And so
Even though the opening scene wasn't black and white.
Yeah, but the way that it transitioned, I was just like, all right, well, the rest of the movie, I guess, is just going to be in black and white, which is kind of weird, but whatever. But then when you had said like, oh, you haven't even gotten to the 80s yet, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. There's hope that it won't be black and white.
Yeah. So it just shows the lack of power black and white has over you as this movie is black and white and you instantly fell asleep. Yeah. So we end up in like the late 50s and we're on a college campus and it's basically just a precursor to what's going on in the 80s. Like really what happens in the 50s matters, but it really only matters for two purposes. One purpose to establish where that alien canister landed and what's in it. And then the other purpose to establish what Detective Cameron's life is like.
Yes.
And so in the 50s, we end up on a college campus. It doesn't matter. It's like America University. It really doesn't matter what college they're on or in. And so we meet a girl in a sorority, and she had just broken up with her like towny boyfriend, and now she's going to go out on a date. She's going to go parking with a different guy, but there happens to be like radio footage going on that there's like an escaped mental patient.
Yeah.
And they're always armed. Like
always.
Escaped mental patients, even though the research probably supports they're probably more lost and confused than they are dangerous. These people are always armed. They never try to get new clothes. They're always still in their like smock or their gown, and they go parking and they're like wishing on a like the brightest star in the sky.
Starlight.
Yeah, starlight, star bright, blah, blah, blah.
I was like, man, it was in my head, and then it was just gone.
And, it turns out to be this canister that lands. And so, Johnny Buzzcut takes off through the woods to go find this canister, leaves her alone in the car. Meanwhile, the boyfriend, before all this happens, he sees them parking together, whatever. Detective Cameron, he ends up becoming. So this insane asylum patient, like, I really like the suspense of this, where the, like Johnny Buzzcut is chasing after whatever landed, and she's like kind of hollering after him.
Yeah.
As we see like the inmate like step into frame behind her, and then we see he has an axe, and she has no idea he's there, and we cut back to college boy who finds the canister as one of those space slugs jumps into his mouth. Cut back to her as like the axe wielding psycho is like right behind her. And I don't know how they did this cut, because he raises his axe and he comes swinging down like full force right at her neck. But then they cut to 86.
Yeah.
But I've done enough filming to know the momentum he had in that swing. Like, you can't just stop that momentum. Like, that's not how physics works. So there must be footage that was edited. Like, they had to make the cut somewhere.
Right.
Where, like, was that a rubber axe? Was that a foam axe? Like, he hit her. I'm sorry. He hit her. That poor actress got hit by that fake axe. But whatever. So we end up in 86. Were you in a sorority in college?
No way.
Are you anti-sorority, or just there weren't any sororities at QU worth it?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, if you are a sorority girl, please don't judge me. But
they don't watch the show.
I just don't want someone to tell me what to wear, how to act, like what to do. Yeah. I mean, and I was in class with sorority girls, and one of my best friends was in a sorority. Yeah. But it's just like, that's just not me. Like, I'm my own person.
Right. Fair enough.
I don't like, they're all just.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I get it. Well, it's just odd because, like, you have a personality that I think would have been very fun in a sorority.
Yes, I think I would have thrived in a sorority.
I think, but as a kindergarten teacher who is used to telling everybody what to do, I think you would have been okay in a sorority if there was an opportunity for you to
Yeah.
be in charge from the
If
start.
I could have been the boss,
Yeah.
yes, probably. And it's funny because my good friend that was in a sorority, she's also a kindergarten teacher.
Oh,
But yeah, I don't know. It's just like sorority people always reminding me of, they're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's just not me.
No, it's not. But it is a little. Like
From 8 to 3.
Yeah, you don't see you outside of you. Like I'm not saying you're sorority girl-esque, but I have seen you put on that charm.
Oh yeah.
So I was never in a sorority. I wouldn't have minded being in one, but I didn't have that opportunity in college. So so we just flash forward to 1986. We're on the same college campus. It's 27 years later, and we meet really our main characters, Chris and CJ. Now, it's lazy writing, and I'm sure you did not even notice it because you're not as well versed in horror as losers like me. But virtually every single character in this movie has a name that ties to someone in horror history.
Okay.
For example, you have Chris Romero sharing a last name with George Romero, director of Night of the Living Dead, etc. Crazies. You have JC, which stands for James Carpenter Hooper. Carpenter being from Halloween, and Toby Hooper, being from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You have Detective Cameron as James Cameron from the original Terminator, Aliens, etc. You've got Cynthia Cronenberg, who Cronenberg is David Cronenberg, who has directed stuff we haven't watched yet, but if you like gory and weird, he's gory and weird. You've got Detective Landis, John Landis from American Werewolf in London, and Sergeant Raimi from from Evil Dead. Like, so many character names are just homages to different directors, but it's whatever. It's fun, but it is lazy writing. But with that being said, Fred Dekker was not trying to make a horror masterpiece here. I think Fred Dekker was just trying to make a fun horror film.
Yeah, he's just having fun.
Yeah, even the university's name is Corman University, which is named after Roger Corman, which is somewhat argued as like the grandfather of like budget horror. You give him $100, he'd make you a horror film.
Okay.
So it's just a lot of fun when you see these names in there. It does get to a point sometimes where you're like, oh, okay, I see what you did there, but whatever. Yeah. So we meet Chris and JC, who are just non-fraternity guys. That's really the best way to explain them.
Yeah, they're just your average.
They're just your average guys.
A little nerdy.
Yeah, a little nerdy, but that's okay. Just they're good guys. Chris is he's your Cupid has struck him.
Yes.
Even before he sees Cynthia Cronenberg, Cupid has struck him. Like, he's having a hard time getting over his last girlfriend. JC, I really like. I like JC.
I do too. He is a go-getter.
I do. I really like JC. I like the fact that they made JC disabled.
Yes.
The director, I was reading the trivia, the director said, someone had asked, like, why is JC disabled? He goes, because whenever you see a disabled person in a movie, the movie's about them.
Yeah.
He goes, I just wanted to put a disabled person in a movie and have that not be a factor. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, good for you, Fred Dekker. So yeah, they're basically walking on the other side of the street of the Pledge Drive, because there's all like, it seems like every Greek establishment at Corman University is within 18 feet of each other. Like, everything is packed onto this half block.
Yes, that is.
Yeah, they're all there. It's Sorority Row.
It's Greek Row.
It's Greek Row. So yeah, Chris spots Cynthia. Cynthia's a hottie. Chris falls in love, and he's like, "I'm in love." Like, I don't even know her.
Instantly. I mean, it was like, I don't care who she is. Like,
I have to meet her.
I need her.
I have to meet her. I have to meet her now. JC is like, okay. Like, I love their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
because it is total, I got your back, bro.
Yeah, and they're so opposite, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like, and it kind of like reminds me of Katie and I, because like she's very quiet and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, yeah, go get it,
Yeah.
Katie. And it just makes me laugh
Yeah.
because she's like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know I am.
JC and Chris they are a great role model relationship for friends.
Yes.
You know, hold each other accountable, be kind to each other, and support each other. So they decide the best way to get Cynthia's attention is to join a fraternity. Cynthia's boyfriend, who is Brad,
The
Bradster,
Oh my gosh.
who's like 35 years old.
Yeah.
He happens to be the head of the fraternity they're going to rush. And typical, they have no intention of accepting these guys, but they still put them through a challenge. You need to go steal a cadaver from the university's medical center and leave it on the front steps of another fraternity. I would have probably just left there and went and rushed the other fraternity. Like,
exactly.
I don't think that's my speed. Chris and JC go to the medical center. Like, they are against this 100%. Like, they know this is a ridiculous plan. They have no intention of. They don't even want to be in fraternity. But JC is doing this because Chris is doing this because he wants to meet Cynthia.
Mm-hmm.
We get kind of a fun little back and forth where, like, the lab worker who apparently works nights at the University Medical Center
and doesn't know his code.
No, he forgets his code.
Like that
he gets.
I don't know. No. It just gets me because it's like, come on, dude. Right. Like, are you new?
No. Well, he remembered every number but the last one.
Yeah.
I love movies. Like, you just think of it like, you want to create a problem and you don't know where to go. But, like, you could literally just write that in there. Like, well, you just forget the last number and then they hit the button and then it happened to be the right number and then it opens. Like, because you may wonder, like, how are these guys going to get into the lab? Well,
like, what a cheesier way to do it.
Like, how are they going to get into the lab? And it's like, you just write it in. Like, this is the beauty of writing a film, is you could just make it up as you go. So Chris and JC, they find the corpse. Well, let's go plot threads tied together here. It happens to be the corpse of the guy who got, like, Johnny Buzzcut from back in the late 50s, who got the slug in his mouth. They have him still 27 years later in, like, this fully blown cryogenics lab. Like, they're taking good care of this guy.
Yes, they are.
A lot of people have died in 27 years, but the only one they seem to be concerned about is this guy. And they don't know about the slug in his mouth. Mm-mm. So I don't know why they're focused on him, but it doesn't matter. They deactivate whatever so that he falls out of whatever, and he grabs him. Like, he's not dead.
Yeah. They thawed him out.
Right.
And he's just like, grabbed their hand. And at that point, they're like, yep, bye. See you never.
We're out of here. And that's really where our movie kicks off.
Yes.
He takes off. That medical guy that comes back kind of looks sideways when the doors open because he knew he didn't leave it open. But then that corpse, like, kills him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, kills him, like, rips his throat open. And kind of a fun little thing, when that medical student is leaving the lab, I like it when he passes the security guard who's not looking at him. Like, he's walking and his throat is ripped open. There's blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And the security guard just walks away. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Cut to Detective Cameron, who was the young cop back in the 50s. So he's now 27 years older, played by one of my favorite 80s that guys, Tom Atkins. He's just, you'll see him in other things as we go along. He is still, because we see in a flashback, he's the cop that came upon the murder scene
of his
ex-girlfriend
lover. Yeah.
And so that tortured him a bit. So instead of calling it quits, he just continues to be a cop. Mm-hmm. Well, he's the one that's called to the lab. And
right. He's like in charge of
He's kind of in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Despite just being a detective, he seems to also be the police chief.
Yeah. And yeah, he is.
So he shows up and he realizes that the Johnny Buzzcut guy, his corpse is gone. Which is, of course, the one that Chris and JC set loose. Mm-hmm. And we get the first of one, which is kind of funny, of like, corpses don't just get up and walk away. And then, of course, cut to the corpse just walking away.
Walking away.
And so this corpse is headed back to the sorority house.
Where he picked up his date.
Where Cynthia Cronenberg happens to live as well. Mm-hmm. When he gets there, it's kind of creepy. Like Cynthia, like she hears, because he was trying to get the first girl's attention by like throwing rocks at the window. So she hears a rock at the window. And of course, we get the really slow burn of her approaching, like in anticipation that something's going to be there.
Yeah.
She pulls the curtain back. There's nothing there. Well, then he just kind of jumps into frame. Did that? Did this movie get you? Did it make you jump at all? No.
Nope.
And so he's dead. Like it's kind of grimacing. Then his head splits open, and all these slugs.
Yeah.
Just are out. So now Cameron is called away from that initial job to this one. And so he finds the body, and he just feels that, well, that looks like something an axe would do to your face. Like it's, it's just something. It's gone wrong. Basically.
Yeah.
And so we get Chris and JC the next day. They're being confronted by the fraternities guys. And the police.
Yeah.
Like they're like poor Chris and JC, like they're the ones like responsible for putting all this in motion, but they didn't mean to. Like
right. It's like they are the most innocent, guilty people.
Yeah. It's like, did you guys do this? Yeah, well...
yes and no.
JC's like, no, we had nothing to do with that. And Chris is like, yeah, we did. Like, we did everything that you said, except dump the corpse on the lawn of the sorority house. Like, we didn't do that. Like, that thing grabbed us, we fled, that was it. Even the fraternity guys are like, we told you another fraternity house, not the sorority house.
Yeah.
And the medical building's janitor, this Asian gentleman was in the interrogation because he saw him running away. There's this like back and forth screaming like banshees.
Yeah, I know.
It's just goofy. And that's what I like about this movie. It's like, it's not scary. But it's got a lot of horror elements to it, but it's just fun. And it's going to be fun because even in the black and white opening of this movie, like the title scene and all of like the opening credits are like bright colors again. Mm-hmm. It's just, it doesn't look like it's going to be scary.
Right.
So the medical student that I mentioned earlier, who had his throat ripped open, he then... which I thought was odd. Why didn't they take him to the morgue?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like this was the medical building on campus, like for medical students, and this guy was murdered. You would think you would take him down to the morgue officially. Instead, they just left him where they found him, pretty much.
Yeah.
And he runs into the screaming like banshees janitor. Mm-hmm. And shoots a slug out of his mouth. Oh, now the janitor's gone.
Yep.
Cynthia, I've seen this movie so many times. Don't really understand. Well, yeah, I do. Because, Chris and JC were telling the Bradster that the corpse thing was not their fault.
Right, and Brad is just like a jerk.
No, but he's just a jerk anyway.
Typical, like what you would see in a movie frat guy, and he as JC's walking away, he kicks out
Yeah.
the arm crutch that JC uses to walk
Right.
and makes him fall. And, you know, Cynthia, like, kudos to her. I know it's a movie, but, like, kudos to her because she's done with Brad at this point. Like, she's like, you're a jerk. I don't need you.
She even, like, hand cranks her middle finger up.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I really like that. Casey got a chuckle out of that one, too.
Yeah, so she's done with Brad. She's now Team JC and Chris.
Yes.
So she goes to talk to those guys about, like, that thing that happened with the guy and his head splitting open, like, that really got to her. And she just needs somebody to listen. Of course, Chris and JC even are like, you're kind of crazy, you know?
Yeah.
But then
Chris isn't going to say it, though. Because...
And it's funny because she's being very open and heartfelt and very worried. And she went to these guys because she realized they're not like other guys. But then, like, she kind of buries her arm or her head in Chris's shoulder. And, like, Chris and JC are, like, celebrating her. Like,
Chris is like, yeah.
He's got his arm around her and he's like, you know, he's pumping his arm and JC's excited for him. It's like, it's such a, like, just a cheesy, immature guy thing to do. That guys do. Like, I'm not the spokesman for all guys, but we also get excited by that kind of stuff. And so absolutely that if it would have been in, like, the modern age, as soon as Chris had a chance to text JC what was going on, he would have done it. Like, it seems like that's what girls do, and guys totally do that stuff too. So JC leaves him alone. Yeah. Like, I got to go to the bathroom. Like, I'm going to leave you guys to do your thing. And what might be the most tense scene of the movie is when JC goes to the bathroom and he's doing his thing. And remember, he's on, like, crutches.
Yeah.
And then we hear somebody come in the bathroom, and then we hear them fall, and then we hear, like, the scurrying sound of all these slugs. And JC's trying to figure out what's going on and falls off the toilet. We see the Asian janitor's head exploded, all these slugs come out. And it's like JC, who can't get up and run, has to try to survive. Yeah.
And, like, we keep saying crutches, but it's like the crutches, like, he's paralyzed.
Yeah.
Pretty much from the waist down.
Yes.
Like, they are, like, the made for you, like, these are your legs.
Paraplegic.
Like, yeah. Like, and, like, yeah. Like, yeah.
Like, step up from wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's like you feel for it because you almost feel like JC shouldn't bite it here. Like, he was just celebrating his best friend. And he just left to give him space. And
like, he just left to be a team player.
Yeah, like, he was being a good guy here. He knew he was the third wheel, and he was totally comfortable with stepping aside so that Chris can have his moment. And it ended up costing him his life. You know, Chris takes Cynthia back to the sorority house. Cameron overhears their conversation. You know, and this is where we kind of get the flashback of Detective Cameron explaining to Chris what was going on back at the axe murderer, ex-girlfriend, or whatever. You know, he still doesn't know about JC yet. We know about JC. We know JC's dead. Like, got in his mouth, but not before he dropped, like, a lit match onto one.
Yeah.
And it, like, killed it. It, like, almost instantly just burned it up. So now we know that there's a weapon, but we don't yet know how anyone else is going to find out that it works. So Cameron's telling him, you know, like, hey, when the case closed, I just hunted him down.
Yeah.
Like, I hunted down the axe murderer, and killed him, and then buried the body, like, behind the sorority house, which is pretty grisly.
Now,
like,
yeah, and now where that body is buried, the house mom lives there in a house.
Yeah, it's like they built the house over top of it.
Yeah.
Look, I know you snapped, Detective Cameron, but why would you bury the murderer of your lover behind the house she lived in?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe, I don't know.
Like, you could have literally buried, like, you could have hit the
you
body
could have
anywhere.
tossed him in the water or something. I don't know.
But it's like, that's what he did, though. That's what he did. And so we've had a scene where, as he's telling this story, it like cuts to the axe murderer coming back from the dead.
Yeah.
Because again, he's kind of been infested with a slug, because the slugs are all over. Like, when the first guy, when his head split open at the sorority house, the slugs are now around campus. So it was kind of a cool scene, because I like practical effects, where this like skeleton comes busting up through the floor.
Yeah.
And takes out the house mother. Detective Cameron, who never has a day off, ever, gets a call that, hey, someone else is dead. Like, so they follow this axe murderer to like an alley. And it was kind of funny. He doesn't know it's the axe murderer yet, because his back's to it, but it's clearly a skeleton.
Yeah.
And then when he turns around, that's when Cameron realizes that it was the axe murderer from 27 years ago. Like, it's his skeleton.
Yeah.
How would you know? But they blow holes in it, which is kind of a cool effect, because every time they blow a hole, the light shines through it. And then more slugs released. Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like, at least for myself, I feel like I'm not doing any justice to this movie, because our recap is all over the place.
But this movie was kind of like, it was, I don't know, like it was from different points of, points of view, but like very much so.
Yeah, we've got Chris and JC, and then we've got what Cynthia's up to, and then we cut to what Cameron's up to, and then we cut back to just some random sorority girl.
Yeah, everyone's got their own kind of issues.
But they do it well enough that, like, watching it, you don't get lost.
Right.
It's well done. So there's now this, despite the fact that there are multiple people on campus dying, and there's multiple, like, we've got the medical student dead, we've got a janitor dead, we've got a house mother dead. We've got JC dead. We don't know JC's dead yet, though, but we know JC's
but he's
dead.
missing.
We've got the cadaver in the medical building gone. So we're talking like 5 to 6 incidences within like 24, 48 hours. So everybody's going to go to a formal anyway.
Yep, let's just still party.
Let's go dancing. Cynthia's invited Chris to go to the formal, which he takes her up on. So naturally, he can find a tux that fits him in a moment's notice.
Yes.
That's okay. We get kind of a really fun 80s montage of all the fraternity and sorority folks getting ready for the dance. It's an 80s movie because I've never been in a woman's locker room shower area, but you can attest to this. Is it just one big free-for-all where everybody's just showing their goods? Like, you just walk around, like you just have your conversations, you're walking up and down the hall. Like, I have no idea. But that
is very much, or at least like my friends and I, you just, I don't know, we're all girls. Like, we all have the same parts.
Like, I would
here I am.
I would understand like underwear and a bra, but like in 80s movies, it's like, I have to go talk to my friend. Let me take all of my clothes off first.
Yes. And I mean,
okay, I stand corrected. Guys, if you're catching the show and you've always wondered if that's what locker rooms are really like, according to Courtney, yeah, they are. Guys, no, not usually. We tend to...
Now, people might, like, girls nowadays might be a little bit more like, what's it called?
Self-conscious?
Like, not wanting to expose themselves.
Well, I can support that as a...
they're a little bit more conservative. There you go. In the locker room. Yeah. But I don't know, like when I was in high school, like, it was all my good friends in PE with me. Right. So it's like, just... Yeah.
Oh, that had to have been so intimidating for the girls not in your circle.
I don't know. I guess I didn't really think of that.
Just like your comfort level with your friends and you
Yeah.
guys are,
Yeah.
to not be in that circle, to just be
Yeah.
like, I can't, as the father of a daughter who just started changing for PE, like, I know it's nerve wracking.
Yeah.
Like, she was like, when we have to start changing, I'm just going to take my stuff to a bathroom stall and change. And we were telling her, like, just change. Everybody's
Yeah.
changing. You don't have time to all line up outside of a stall to go change it.
Correct. Like,
so just get it done. So she's
yeah.
figured it out. She's fine. But there you go. That's how it stands. According to you, these are fairly accurate. When you're washing yourself, you face out. You don't try to conceal anything. You actually try to showcase it. But that's how 80s women's locker room montages were.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as much soapy suds as possible, like, except in the areas that you actually want your audience to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your back could be covered in suds.
Mm-hmm, but not that front.
Your belly and upper chest, sure, not there.
Yeah.
Don't cover that up. So yeah, the guys are all getting ready. The girls are all getting ready. The house mother's dog got a slug in its mouth.
Yeah.
And with the guys, which kind of cracks me up, because they technically, I guess, they don't make it to the formal.
Yeah.
But you just kind of established that everything at Corman University happens to be like half a block away from each other. But yet all of these guys still board a charter bus to go pick up their dates. Okay.
Maybe the formal is somewhere else.
But possibly. And I would think that probably. But all these guys, they board a charter bus. Well, the dog who's been infected,
mm-hmm.
hops out in front of the charter bus. And the charter bus driver is very humane, as he, instead of hitting this dog in the middle of the road that he just sees, like this dog comes out of nowhere, he instead crashes the charter bus, killing everybody on board.
And the dog goes in and has a heyday.
Because those slugs inside the dog all have hosts. Chris, as he's getting ready, he finds that JC's left him like a cassette tape.
Yes.
And JC somehow had some sort of power. Everybody else that got infected by a brain slug, like, died instantly and zombied out.
Yeah.
JC was able to go home. Under his own
find a recorder.
Like he even said, I walked, and it was kind of,
yeah.
I walked, Chris. I walked on my own. I was like, when he says that, I'm like, that's always wanted. And he finally got to do it, but not before he died. So he tells JC what's going on. It's your exposition piece. I got infected, but I did catch one on fire. Heat will kill them. I love you, Chris. Good luck with Cynthia. And then he told him where he went. Like, he went and basically killed himself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, basically went and caught himself on fire to kill all the slugs. Chris, instead of going to pick up Cynthia, goes to Cameron first and says they got JC. They got alfalfa. Cameron was in the middle of a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder how many times he's attempted suicide over the years.
I know, especially with as many flashbacks and, like, still being in the same town that's, like, haunted him.
Yeah. Like, at one point he was having a pretty good dream where he was on the beach all decked out. And and like a really cool editing job where, like, this beautiful bikini clad woman comes up out of the water completely dry, approaches them, and it's like, oh, he's having a good dream. And then, like, cut to 59 where he comes upon that same woman getting just massacred. It's really, it really sucks. So Chris and Cameron go, he tells them that fire will do it. So they go to the armory and they get the flamethrower. I get confused on my shows. No, we did not watch Chopping Mall, correct?
No.
Okay. the guy who runs the armory, his name's Dick Miller. He's in a lot of movies in the 80s,
Okay.
like a lot of movies in the 80s. So he was in Chopping Mall. He's also in Gremlins. They get a flamethrower from the armory. They show up. I like Cameron. He kind of busts in and he's like,
yeah,
like, good news, ladies, your dates are here.
Yeah, I know, that was funny. And they're
Bad
like,
news is they're dead.
What's the bad news?
Yeah,
like,
they're
I've got
dead.
good news and bad news.
So all these zombies start like crashing into the sorority house. Chris like puts the flamethrower on Cynthia, shows her how to use it, or did he have the flamethrower and she have the gun?
Yeah, she had the flamethrower because he's like, squeeze it, just show me you know how to work it, and she's just like, Yeah.
So Cameron's inside with basically a can of hairspray and a cigarette, in his 6-shooter that shoots off 15,000 rounds. Chris and Cynthia are outside trying to do the same thing. We get some fun deaths here, like he fires up a lawnmower and runs over a zombie.
Yeah.
So they get rid of all these. Cameron realizes that he had asked Cynthia about something. Well, early on, we get a story where one of the sorority girls needed a place to put her science project. And it was the human brain. So the human brain is down in the basement. Well, Cameron makes his way to the basement. And all the slugs are on this brain.
Like thousands of them.
Yes, like that's like headquarters. He clears the house. He and Chris somehow ended at 0 at the same time, but yet counted at way different patterns.
Yeah.
Like Cameron is like spending 6 to 15 seconds between countdown numbers. Meanwhile, Chris is like 11, 10, 9, 8. It's like, no, there's no way you guys are ending at the same time. Long story short, the house blows up. Cameron dies on the inside. That he sacrificed himself to kill off all the slugs. Chris and Cynthia are still madly in love, apparently.
Yes.
They run out of the house. They kiss. And that's about it. We do get the final scene. Now, I will say this. The ending we watched is the first time I've seen this ending.
Okay.
It's not the theatrical ending. It's the original ending.
Okay, and I just read that there was 2 endings.
Yeah, in the original ending, which I've seen all the time, firefighters show up, police show up, like they're taking care of the sorority house stuff. Mm-hmm. Chris and Cynthia are standing there kind of, taking care of each other, and then the dog walks up next to Cynthia. She crouches down, and it shoots a slug, and then, cut to credits. That's the only ever ending I've seen. Well, in this one, somebody makes the comment about, again, corpses don't just get up and walk around. Cut to Cameron, who charred Cameron. Pretty good effects.
Yeah.
He didn't survive the blast, but he had gotten infected and infested. So he's walking by. Police cars are driving by him, which I thought was odd.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this guy is clearly charred alive. So he stops, falls to the ground. His head bursts open. The slugs run off. And in very much like a Return of the Living Dead here, the slugs run off and we follow them into a cemetery. Mm-hmm. So we know, they're going to go and make even more zombies. And then a really kind of goofy wraparound here. A spotlight pops in as that alien spaceship from the beginning has now come into Earth looking for the slug, which I can understand why they didn't go with that part of the ending. I thought that was a little goofy, but that's it. That wraps up. I like this movie. Night of the Creeps. So this took place on a college campus.
Yes.
Let's grade this thing.
Okay. Sorry, I was just about to hop into a lesson. I'm gonna give this grade just because, like I don't have the sentimental or
Oh
like,
no, you don't have the
back
nostalgia.
value to it. I'm gonna give it a B
That's
minus,
okay.
just because like it was okay. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it was also like, okay, like it was just so cheesy.
It
Like,
is.
I don't know, like how is everyone just like looking at a zombie with their mouth open and the slug shoots in there
Right.
and things like that? Like, it was just very cheesy.
It is. Oh yeah, I know
And
that.
there's nothing wrong with that, obviously, but it just, I mean, yeah, it was just okay for me.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm gonna go with an A because I love this movie and it is cheesy. You don't have to think about anything. Everything is laid out right there in front of you. This is definitely one that it's like if I'm flipping through the channels and it's on, I get giddy. Now, is it ever on? No. But if it
No.
were, I'd be like, oh my god, the creeps is on, and I'd watch it. Like I just,
Mhm.
but it is. I will admit, it's purely nostalgia for me. Like I grew up watching this movie a lot. There's another Fred Dekker movie that I equally enjoy, Monster Squad. Love that movie. And that's really what it boils down to. Like those two movies hit. Like I was 7 when this movie came out. This is
Yeah.
a great horror film for a 7-year-old boy.
Yeah.
You know, um, by the time it probably hit TV, I was 8. So it's like 8-year-old boy. It's like there's boobs and there's really nothing overly scary, but it's like
Right.
it's a perfect recipe for you can watch this and not have nightmares.
Correct.
You could watch this and go to school and brag to your friends that you watched a movie with boobs in it, But at the same time, yes, there's nudity, but it's not like graphic.
Right.
There's
It's
no,
not, and it's not like
yeah, I was gonna
sexualized.
say there's no sex.
Yeah.
There's no sex in this movie. It's nothing in this movie is uncomfortable, to
Correct.
show a kid. Outside of
Yeah.
course, I wouldn't show my kids this, but um, but it's just I don't know. It is purely just 80s nostalgia for me.
Hmm.
Movies like this just don't happen today. Everything's got to be jump scares or everything's got to be found footage or everything, it's like and even if they tried to remake it, you're not going to get that lightning in a bottle. And
Right.
the movie did not make any money. Like $500,000. Like it was garbage. But this is a movie that was successful because video stores were huge. This is a movie that I never heard of this. I'm going to take a flyer on it. And if that were the case, you're like, oh, I was pleasantly surprised. That wasn't as bad as I anticipated. So that's it for me. I'm going to go an A. I'm not going to go an A plus because I know it's not the greatest movie, but it definitely gets an A out of me just because I like this movie. So yeah, what kind of lesson you got here?
You kind of already like touched on this lesson a little bit, but I'm gonna go with like in school, find like your person or like a good like friend that supports you. And like don't just try and be friends with somebody because they are like the quote unquote popular people or
Yeah,
something, because like when you get to college, popularity doesn't matter. I mean,
no,
people don't care if you were prom queen, if you were anything in
nope,
high school. Like it's truly just who you are. So I think that the earlier that you find yourself and just accept like I am who I am, I think that life is just a lot easier.
right. You're absolutely right. And I'm gonna piggyback on that with choose happiness. Like above all else, we get one trip through this thing, and to spend so much time chasing something that isn't yours, like you said, chasing a peer group that you envy, or it's just be happy. Like Chris and JC are perfect friends. Like there aren't many instances in movies where I could really point fingers and be like, that's the friendship I would like to see everybody model. But this
Hmm.
is one of them. Like
Yeah.
these two,
Yeah.
like it's not even there. It's not even like homoerotic at all. When in JC's message, he's like, "I love you."
Yeah.
Like it's completely friendship platonic. I mean,
Yeah.
he does
It's
like
yeah.
these two love each other. And so that's what gets misconstrued a lot. But I definitely agree with you in the it doesn't matter. And and if you are listening and you're in school, high school, especially junior high, like it doesn't have to happen right now either. Like,
Right.
That if you're finding yourself in a zone where you feel kind of lonely because you just don't seem to mesh with everybody, remember, there are millions of people around. I'm not going to say, oh, there's 8 billion people on this planet, because that's not conceivable. But like our town, like the most recent census, like our town had like 2,100 people.
Mm-hmm.
And to see, and that's 2,100 people. That's not kids. That's everyone. So it breaks my heart to see kids at school that just kind of, that they're good kids and that they are able and capable and deserving, but they just haven't found their mix yet. And they get really down on themselves. And I understand that, because you want to fit in at all times. But maybe your time's just not right now.
Right.
Like, to look around and be like, oh, there's 200 people in my high school. Like, 200 people is nothing.
Nothing.
Like,
you will get out to college or to the trades or wherever you go, and like, I mean, yeah,
like,
there's thousands.
I had classes in college with more kids that are in our high school.
Yeah.
Like, you just know, and that, I know it's easier said than done. That doesn't make it okay. But if it helps, just tuck that away and be like, it's okay. It just hasn't happened yet. It will. It totally will. So find something close for the time being, vibe it out, and you'll be fine. And, but yeah, that's good. I like that lesson. And the timing of it it's not set in stone. So you'll be fine. You'll be fine. All right. So that was my pick. It's your pick for next week. And what are you dropping on us?
I am going to do the 1984 Children of the Corn.
Ooh, look at you. I knew that already, but I'm not.
Act excited.
I like that, because you just picked a movie from 1984.
It's older than this one.
Yeah, it's older than this movie. It's older than last week's movie.
But it is in color. Don't worry, I looked.
Yeah, I know it's in color. I've seen. This is another one of those. This movie scared me as a kid.
Okay. I never watched this movie as a child, nor as a young adult.
Have you seen it yet?
No, I have not. Okay. Because I grew up in a cornfield.
Yeah.
And we'd ride our 4-wheelers and stuff out through the corn. Yeah. And so it's like,
yeah.
So yeah, I never.
Yeah, this movie, I remember watching this movie, I won't say a lot as a kid, but often enough that it scared me. I was younger for this movie than I was for, and you got to remember too that I grew up at a time when my parents would take us to the video store and really didn't care what we rented, and didn't watch it with us. So I almost always would gravitate to the horror section because the box art was just so much cooler. Yeah. And movies like this came home with me. And movies like this were watched by me alone. Like, my parents would be doing whatever, and I would just pop in Children of the Corn and watch it and be uncomfortable and be scared. And it's like, that it's, again, another one of those bubbles where it's like, that doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
Like, the digestion happens for sure, because with streaming, like, these kids can start and stop a movie at any time they want.
Oh, yeah.
But they didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
Like, this, like, going to the video store was an investment. Like, you invested the time and the money. Like, it's $4 or $5.
Yeah.
To rent a movie. So you rented one and you watched it. Like, whether you like it or not, you watched it. This movie was on HBO a lot. I've seen this movie a lot. And I do like it. It's fun. I tell you this, when I told my wife what we were watching this week, she's like, all right, go. You're on your own. When I told her what we were watching next week, she's like, I'll watch Children of the Corn with you. So there you go. You got her there.
Casey will not, because I already told him. I'm like, are you gonna watch next week's movie with me? He goes, what is it? I'm like, Children of the Corn. He goes, no.
Now I will tell you this. It's not going to be as impactful as an adult, as it would have been.
Yeah,
because it's like, there's like, as a kid you would have been like, oh my God, there's cornfields all around me. As an adult, whatever, like, that part of it's not gonna click.
Yeah.
But it's still a fun movie.
Are there a lot of jump scares in it? Do you remember? There
are a few for sure.
Okay.
But there's also just kind of a lot of dread.
Okay.
Like the premise of the movie itself is like, that's awful. Like, it's a Stephen King. Stephen King wrote the short story Children of the Corn. So there you go. We're back in Stephen King world.
Stephen King.
But no, it is. It's the critics don't like it.
Okay.
Like, they never did. Like, Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 39%. Metacritic gives it a 45 out of 100. Like, Roger Ebert said that by the end of Children of the Corn, the only thing moving behind the rows is the audience fleeing to the exits. Like, it is. I almost said it unironically, but it is a little corny. Not meaning to be punny, but it's still a fun movie. It is a fun movie for sure. IMDb has it as a 5.6. Night of the Creeps was a 6.7. But again, people that like Night of the Creeps really like Night of the Creeps.
Yeah.
So, and Children of the Corn has 30,000 more votes than Night of the Creeps. So there you go. But yeah, Children of the Corn. I do like this movie. You'll like it. I hope. There's one jump scare in particular that I'm curious how much it'll get you. So, well, did you have a good week so far? School? Is it getting there?
You know what? The full moon this week, my life was a horror movie this week.
Oh, Children in the Desks.
Yeah.
Mine was all right. Mine was fine. No problem with my week.
Like, I just have come home every day and wanted to sleep.
Oh.
It's been exhausting. But, we just wait till October when those kids have their, like, routine down and everything. Yeah. It pays off.
Yes, it'll smooth out and you'll be just fine. Fair enough. Yeah, mine's been good. It's typical. My wife's birthday's tomorrow.
There you go. My mom's birthday was yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday to your mom. So yeah, that's what we got rolling. Is family birthday weekend, Labor Day weekend. So
my wedding anniversary weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is
2
what
years.
Number? Dos. That's it? I know we've talked about it before.
I know, just 2.
It feels so much longer than 2. I don't think you're doing your math right.
I know. Hey, I was never very good at math. You know that.
So.
That's why I could only teach up to 3rd grade, I say.
Casey's like, we've been married 4 years, Courtney. No, that's it, just 2. Man. Oh, well, kudos to you. So social media-wise, you guys can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Keep leaving those comments, like, subscribe, all that stuff. We're getting comments every now and then on YouTube videos. We're getting some fan interaction on our Spotify too. So keep it coming because we love that interaction. So we got Children of the Corn for this coming week, and then it is scratch off time.
Yes.
After that, so I always get nervous around scratch off time because I have no idea. Scratch off time, and I think I get more nervous about scratch off week than I do like just shuffle week. Because it's like we can always reshuffle.
Yeah,
scratch off time. I feel like, well, we're locked into these movies.
Yeah.
So
you scratched it, you take it.
Right. So, all right. Well, for another episode of Education, I'm Mike.
And I'm Courtney.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.